Welcome to the Calm Analytics channel. I'm Boris Tiesenghausen. Today is April 26th. The main news at this moment. The defense forces of Ukraine carried out a massive attack on Russia and the temporarily occupied territory of Crimea. In short, several crucial targets were hit at once. In Yaroslavl, several strikes on an oil refinery. This is one of the largest oil refineries in Russia. It processes about 15 million tons of oil per year. That is, not a single day goes by without Ukrainian drones hitting Russian oil infrastructure. Local authorities claimed the attack was repelled. They were shooting them down right with this refinery. Let's see how they repelled the attack.
Тут горит. Иди сюда.
Repelled it, they did. This Slavneftyanos is indeed a strategic facility for Russian oil refining. Excellent work and several hits at once. I think it will burn for a long time. In temporarily occupied Sevastopol, fires are reported in various parts of the city after a series of explosions. Locals say they haven't seen anything like tonight's attack before. Our drones hit several important military targets at once. Airfields and ships in the bays of Sevastopol were under attack. You know, it's doubly pleasing for me because I was born in Sevastopol. And today, while reviewing the videos we had from there, we came across a couple where Russians who moved there ask, where is the air defense? How can this be? Why didn't they protect us? All the air defense was taken to Putin in Valdai. And overall, this is just the beginning. So pack your bags and get the hell back to Sizran from our Ukrainian Crimea. And just a few minutes before recording this broadcast, information came from the Security Service of Ukraine, the Service of God as we call it here, about where our drones actually landed. And this is a real jackpot. SBU Alpha fighters conducted a successful special operation at the Black Sea Fleet Naval Base in Sevastopol, at the Belbek Military Airfield, and at the Kacha Airfield. So, as a result of the SBU drone strikes, the following were hit. They struck the Yamal large landing ship again, the Filchenkov large landing ship, the Ivan Kurs reconnaissance ship also got its share. The Lukomka training center of the Russian Federation's Black Sea Fleet also took a hit. The Air Defense Signals Intelligence Headquarters was hit. The Cape M1 radar was destroyed. A MiG-31 aircraft burned down at the Belbek airfield, and the technical maintenance section of the Belbek airfield also sustained serious damage. Wow, that's wonderful. But that's not all. The governor of the Vologda region reported damage to a high-pressure sulfuric acid pipeline at the ammonia-3 nitrogen complex of the Apatit Joint Stock Company. This is in the city of Cherepovets, and our drones were at work there too. But that's still not all. Now here's some news that'll make some Russians feel sick. Ukraine, no, not like that. Unknown armed men are chasing the Russian Africa Corps right on the African continent. Russian military social media channels are reporting the downing of a military helicopter in Mali with Russians from the Africa Corps on board. The crew was killed. I'll remind you, in Mali yesterday, the Tuaregs began an offensive on the positions of troops supported by Russia. Someone has seriously taken on the Russian Africa Corps. The Africa Corps was previously called the Wagner PMC, so they just renamed it, and those militants who were there are now called the Africa Corps. Not just seriously taken on, but an offensive is underway there on all fronts. Help! Who could it be? Reports are emerging about the situation in northern Mali in the settlement of Kidal. It's reported that Russia has requested a safe corridor to withdraw troops from the military base in Kidal, and the Russian Africa Corps has already begun withdrawing its units from this surrounded base. Maybe they'll let them out if there's an agreement with the Tuaregs. At the same time, information is coming in about the mass surrender of government forces collaborating with the Russian Federation. And in Mali, the defense minister and a key Russian ally has been killed. The rebels stated they are trying to push out these pro-Russian government troops. Kidal was recaptured by mercenaries with the help of Wagner PMC mercenaries back in November 2023. Russia helped the Malian government a lot back then. Well, what do the Russians say? We don't leave our own behind, and if we do, then they weren't our own. Another government, it seems, is about to vanish into oblivion. And the Russians will say, well, what can you do? What can you do? A place will be found near Moscow. By the way, Solovyov wrote that, do you know what he wrote? That it's Ukrainian and European mercenaries trying to overthrow the poor pro-Russian government in Mali. But what does that mean? That Ukraine is kicking Russian butt on the African continent too? Oh, Ukraine, it was a mistake. Putin made a big mistake. Well, today our fundraiser is very much on theme. In every episode, we have an important fundraiser for the Ukrainian Defense Forces. And today we're starting a short fundraiser. It's a small one for the International Legion of the GUR, the main intelligence directorate, which naturally is fighting for Ukraine. There's a great Belarusian warrior who's been defending Ukraine in the International Legion since the start of the war. The 4th Battalion of the GUR International Legion. Those Russian ghouls recently damaged their vehicles and they need to be repaired. And the warriors recorded a message for you. Please have a listen.
Вітаю! Ми група білоруських доброохотників у складі Інтернаціонального легіону ГУР. Наша група зараз знаходиться на Запорожському напрямку і виконує задачі по виявленню і знищенню ворожих БПЛА. Після прильоту ворожого каба були моцно пошкоджені наш автотранспорт. Необхідна сума для ремонту складає 120 тисяч гривень. Звертаємося до Бориса Тезінгаузена, слухачів і підписчиків його каналу за допомогою у ремонті автомобілів. Вельми сподіваємося на вашу допомогу, щоб разом поскорити нашу перемогу.
Let's help our warriors who are defending Ukraine. The link to the fundraiser is in the description of this video. And one more little surprise. Yesterday I met with our Marines from the 34th Brigade who are fighting in the Kherson direction with Samira and her brothers in arms. We gave them the drones we raised money for, and they send you their warmest regards and a huge thank you. And I took the liberty of passing on words of gratitude from you to them. I even gave everyone a hug. The soldiers, by the way, brought an engine from a downed Shahed with them. It's huge, really serious. If I can, I'll edit that video in right here. All of this is thanks to you. And also, take a look at this. This is the engine from a Shahed that was shot down thanks to the drones we raised money for. It was spotted and shot down by soldiers of the 34th Brigade. A huge thank you to you from them. And from you, I'm giving them the warmest words, and I'll definitely give them a hug now. This is the most direct and immediate proof that every donation you make saves someone's life. Thank you so much. By the way, the soldiers gave us their new patch, and it's taking its rightful place on our wall of honor. This is what it looks like. Not just a patch, but also a flag signed by the soldiers. Here it is. From the 34th. And taking this opportunity, I send a huge hello and a big thank you to all the soldiers and commanders of the 34th Brigade. Now, you know, from good people, we have to move on to the most disgusting, the most vile. It's going to be about Putin now. After several attempts by Putin to explain internet outages and utility rates, they decided to let out that mustachioed puppet Peskov. Apparently, they realized the old man can't even read from cue cards anymore. It looks like the Botox has leaked into his skull. So Peskov came out and delivered a text even worse than Putin himself. So let's look at a few points just so you understand what kind of rhetoric is being broadcast from the Kremlin now. In Europe, crises are worsening in the economy, in security, and most importantly, a crisis in self-understanding and core values. Well, that's a classic. Yes, everything is bad in Europe. They don't understand themselves, lost souls, but everything is great in Russia. Remember the video they made a couple of years ago about how all of Europe would freeze without Russian gas? Oh, how Europe has frozen without Russian gas. Current European politicians have chosen total Russophobia as their main course, Peskov stated. I wonder why that is. And why, when Hitler, for example, attacked Europe, did European politicians choose a course of Naziphobia, huh? Why, I wonder, does nobody know? Don't you know why Russians aren't liked? Scientists from all over the world are struggling with this riddle. An inexplicable fact. Before the attack on Ukraine, by the way, Russians were treated normally. But after, some kind of Russophobia appeared, I'd even say Russo hatred. But what the reason is, Peskov doesn't understand. Now, this is a real masterpiece from his interview. Russia cannot be the main threat to Europe, as it is an integral part of it. To proclaim it, the main threat is erroneous and unwise. Indeed, Russia is not the main one at all. I mean, not a day goes by without some ghoul or little ghoul from the Russian Federation threatening Europe, NATO, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Poland, Ukraine, Azerbaijan, Armenia. In short, they threaten everyone. But Russia cannot be the main threat to Europe, as it is an integral part of it, says Peskov. Well, let's say it really can't be. Let's proclaim Moldova the main threat to Europe, or the Netherlands, for example, right? Of course, they understand everything perfectly well, and they know why they are despised and disliked. They understand perfectly. I remember street polls in Russia when Russians were asked, What are the goals of this war and how much longer must we fight Ukraine? And some, foolish, you could really see they were foolish Russians, said, we'll take all of Ukraine. And they were chuckling like that. I remember one character who had every other tooth missing, just like that typical imperial trash from the backwoods. I mean, his keyboard was missing a few keys there. A Suzerain aristocrat, you know. So he, giggling foolishly, said, we'll take all of Ukraine. And to the question, to the journalist's question, he said, well, why does Russia need it? Russia already has its own huge territory. Do you know what he said? Because we can. This is aggressive ignorance. This is the deep Russian, the deep people. More from Peskov, the architecture of European security is unthinkable without Russia's participation and without taking its interests into account. Oh, it's very much thinkable, very much so. Europe is arming itself right now because it understands perfectly well where Russian interests lie. In other words, Russia's interests will end where it stopped, where its balding head gets knocked. Remember how Putin said that Russia's borders don't end anywhere? I see. And he also said that wherever a Russian soldier's foot treads, that's Russian land. It's ours. And like Gollum, he'd crouch down and bulge his eyes. It's ours. Right here, near Kiev, a Russian soldier's foot did tread. But this is not Russian land. They're still collecting those feet in the forests. Yesterday, drones hit Yekaterinburg and Chelyabinsk. They're reaching the Urals now, and they're still on about some greatness, about where their foot is going to tread. Though the Soviet Union also had a cult of greatness. Exactly, and how? Great and everything was great and the great mighty language, the great mighty Soviet Union, everything was great and mighty. It collapsed before they could even blink, even though its margin of safety was higher than Russia's. It had an ideology and it had a foundation. And Peskov concluded with the following phrase, Moscow hopes that current European politicians will give way to more pragmatic ones. But for now, of course, it's a completely depressing picture, Peskov summarized. This isn't a depressing picture yet. Now, when you and your balding dinosaur are sitting in The Hague together, that will be much more interesting, though I don't think they'll actually live to see The Hague. Oh, and by the way, friends, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Do it right now. It's important for promoting the channel and for fighting Putin's propaganda. Together, as you remember, we are a great force. The Kremlin stated that the internet shutdowns did not affect the economic downturn. And how do you even measure that over there in Russia? I read today that all these VTSIOMs, I think everyone understands this, that all these VTSIOMs and polls are the kind of thing where, let's draw it so it's not completely embarrassing, but, well, we need to follow some kind of trend. So all these polls, it's simple. Even if they ask the question, do you support the direction the Russian Federation is heading? Do you support Putin's policies? How does a person, if it's a street poll or a phone poll, know who's asking them? He'll say, no, I don't support it. Step this way, please. That's why the Kremlin stated that the internet shutdowns had no effect. So that's what they decided. I see hundreds of videos of young people being hysterical, screaming at the top of their lungs, give us back the internet, we're leaving Russia. No effect. Internet restrictions are not the cause of the economic downturn in Russia in early 2026, stated presidential economic aide Maxim Oreshkin. There are other more significant factors that are influencing the economy, Oreshkin said. Yes, there are, of course there are. Putin, for example, stated that these factors are 3 extra days off and bad weather, and the GDP plummeted by 2%. Those are the factors. Well, I think everyone understands perfectly well. By the way, Oreshkin lately, somehow Russian officials they've been allowed to tell a little bit of the truth. Oreshkin stated that there's a shortage of resources and a shortage of personnel hindering economic development. So what's the main reason, Oreshkin? Well, are you going to say it or not? Go on, say it. Name that balding, 5-foot-tall, underground main reason that's leading the Russian economy by the hand straight into the abyss, along with all of Russia. Oh, and I'll also show you a unique video now. I don't know, it really impressed me, how soldiers of the 3rd Army Corps used a ground-based robotic system to evacuate an elderly woman. The road to the settlement where she lived was already under fire. She was one of the last residents there. Some had evacuated, others had died, unfortunately. And so she was walking along this road that was under fire. Obviously, they couldn't drive to get her. The Russians would have shot our soldiers immediately, so they sent a ground robotic system for her. She was spotted by pilots of the 60th Separate Mechanized Brigade, and they decided to send a ground robot. Soldiers from the Cerberus Unmanned Ground Systems Company took on the task. And so, as not to scare the grandmother, obviously, a robot on tracks is coming at her. She doesn't know what to do. So they covered this iron machine with a blanket so it would look soft, like a little sofa, maybe like an armchair. And they attached a note that said, "Grandmother, please sit down." So this operation lasted 4 hours, but the grandmother sat down and they got her out. She is 77 years old, 53 of which she lived in her own home, which the occupiers destroyed. Some elderly people don't want to evacuate. They say, well, where would I go? I've lived here my whole life. Especially those who are alone, especially those who have nowhere to go. Can you imagine what it's like for them now, having lived their whole lives in their village or town, and now the Russians are wiping everything off the face of the earth before their eyes? Their neighbors are dying, neighboring houses are being destroyed, their own homes are being hit. Well, but it's absolutely necessary to evacuate. You have to live, don't give up. And in Ukraine, people will definitely help. In Ukraine, they definitely don't leave their own behind. And here is the video. I'll show it to you now. Please take a look.
Хлопці зв'язалися, робили обльот ставків до розвідка, і побачили бабусю, що вона йде, побачили, що вона впала. Друже Графіті, так розумієте, зараз на перезарядку і до бабусі летиш, правильно?
А сейчас меняем батарейку и сразу пойдем назад.
Все, плюс-плюс, друже, плюс-плюс. Ні. Коли вони підлетіли вже другий раз, я кажу, так вона ходить, давайте щось там малювати на НРК, щоб вона зрозуміла, що в нього треба сідати, тому що...
Вона вже біля розриву.
Блин, там никто не ведет?
Графіт полетіла перед.
Не, кота. Все. И одышка немножко.
Да. Офигеть.
Давай. Все, села, все, потихонечку, давай.
Давайте мов. Доброго дня. І в укриття. Можна давайте.
Там человеку надо таблетки все.
Знаєте, вас усі бачите дуже просто.
Все, наконец-то можно вздохнуть. Слава Богу.
Спасибо.
Thanks to our warriors who show humanity in any situation. There was a story recently, remember how a dog and a cat were lifted into the air by a drone and evacuated to a safe distance. They flew more than 10 kilometers. And another story that really touched me. This story happened recently. It just has a sequel. How a 70-year-old grandfather evacuated from the Chernihiv region in an old Zhiguli. I don't know if you've seen this picture or not. It was these blue Zhiguli that became the symbol of his story. He evacuated from the Chernihiv region, arrived in Kiev, and then the car broke down. Well, it was overloaded. It broke down. In the car, there were household appliances, food, and on the roof rack, there were cages with chickens. Well, and inside the car, a dog was traveling with him. So he made it to Kiev. The car just couldn't take it. It bottomed out on the asphalt. Patrol officers came to the rescue. They towed his car to a service station. Kind people helped with the repairs there. But the story didn't end there. It was only just beginning. This grandfather's name is Nikolai Matvienko. He is evacuating for the second time because of the war. He used to live in Kartsysk, that's the Donetsk region, and in Kartsysk, after one of the shellings, his wife died. And then he moved from Kartsysk to the village of Kamin in the Chernihiv region. The Russians came with their shells and bombs there too. Half the village burned down. There were practically no residents left. He gathered his simple belongings, chickens, dogs, and left home. And while he was traveling to Kiev, he said that the chickens laid as many as 10 eggs. And after the forced evacuation, he settled in the village of Hrushki. That's in the Kirovohrad region. He got there after his difficult journey. And, when I came across the story about Nikolai, I was truly impressed by his strength of spirit. At 70 years old, he's starting life over for the second time. I mean, it's very difficult, but he said one very valuable phrase. You have to live and help people, especially those on the front lines. It's 100 times harder for them. Indeed, it's true. And that's not the end of the story yet. The grandfather was given a new car, also by kind people. He's settling into his new place. Anyway, take care of yourselves, friends. Take care of your loved ones. And let's help our warriors. The link to the fundraiser is in the description of this video. Have a peaceful day, everyone, and glory to Ukraine.